Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the UU Church of Canandaigua. I'm Eileen. I'm your minister. I'm so glad to be with you this morning. Before we begin our service today, I have a few quick announcements to share with you. And I'm going to share my screen, but there are links that go along with these announcements, and they are already in your chat. So this week, I have to tell you about the Thanksgiving pie sale fundraiser for the last time. You can find a link in your chat box to purchase a pie for the benefit of our church. We've got some very dedicated pie bakers working hard on these, and you can have your pie delivered locally or pick it up at the church on Tuesday. And today is the last day for ordering. So you'll need to order by 4 p.m. today. That's when ordering will shut down. So if you want a pie to share with your friends or family or for yourself for Thanksgiving, order today. Next up, I want to let you know you all decided to ordain me. And we're going to have an ordination and installation service where I'm installed as your minister, not installed like a new dishwasher. That will be via Zoom on December 5th at 4 o'clock. And there's a link for that service in your chat. There will also be a link coming to you in your newsletter by email. So you don't have to save it, but if you want to, it's there. And then I want to let you know about this special connection effort we're going to try this winter season when we're all apart from each other and maybe apart from some of our other loved ones as well. We are going to try this effort. You can sign up to participate in UUCC's Secret Elves, where you'll be assigned a household or a person that you will be the secret elf for. You can bring them a gift or a meal, some cookies, just a special card. And then also an elf will be assigned to you. And we'll try and connect with one another from far away in this way. We've got a new small group series about to start at the beginning of December called Pixar Theology. We had a lot of fun with our fall book group. And in the winter, we're going to try a winter movie group. That makes this a multi-generational small group. Some of our younger folks might be interested, and hopefully lots of our older folks too. So we're going to separately watch the Pixar movie Moana, if you're interested in this small group. And then we're going to come together for a one-time session to talk about the spiritual themes of finding our calling or our purpose in life. And that one-time session is on December 8th from 6 to 7 p.m. So if you're interested, there's a link in the chat where you can sign up. You'll also find a link for this in your upcoming newsletter. And with that, let's take a deep breath in. Let us enter a space of worship. If you have a chalice handy or a candle of any kind, let's light them together now. This is the time for our chalice lighting, as we recite our chalice lighting words. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. Friends, I want to tell you a story. My 4-year-old, when he is savoring some particularly tasty snack, goldfish crackers usually, and his baby brother reaches out to grab a few for himself, there's often a big shall we say, reaction to that. He guards the snack jealously or shouts or runs away, inevitably spilling some of this treasured treat in the process. And I have to step in and remind him that we have enough goldfish for everyone to enjoy some. We have enough snacks. We have enough food. Goldfish are abundant, and we're not going to be without snacks anytime soon. There is enough to enjoy what we have and also to share some. And that maybe we might even enjoy it more if we share it. We might spill and waste less than we do when we try to hoard it for ourselves. And I think that maybe that's why we come to church too, because we remind one another here that this is a world of abundance, a world of plenty. This glorious world has enough for all its creation to survive, enough resources, no matter what our culture tells us, enough time, enough love, maybe even enough to share. And we ourselves, we are certainly enough. Let's join together in singing our first hymn, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. And now it's time for a story. I'm going to share my screen so we can see some pictures for this story time. Perhaps. Once upon a time, there was a traveler, an old wise woman who traveled long down the road. And it came to be nearly evening, and she stopped at the nearest village. This was a village where the people had hardly enough to feed themselves, to house themselves, where all their resources felt scarce. They had fallen on hard times. And the old woman traveler stopped here, and in the center of town, she met some townsfolk. And she said to them, "Is it okay if I camp here this evening? Will you show me some hospitality?" And the townsfolk said to her, "You can camp here, but we don't have anything to share. We won't be able to feed you. We have barely enough to feed ourselves." And the old woman said, "That's okay. I have a magical recipe. I'll make us all some stone soup." And the townspeople were perplexed. They'd never heard of soup made from a stone, but she asked them just for a pot. And she pulled a handful of stones from her pocket and threw them into the pot. Then she asked for water to fill it up. And the townspeople gladly brought her water to fill it up. She set it on a fire and it started boiling. She said, "We might need a little something for flavor. I wonder if anyone has a single onion, just one to spare." And so it was that the old man down the road went into his cupboard and he did find one little sad looking onion, and he brought it out to share with his neighbors. She put it in the pot. And then she said, "It would be nice to have a little color in the soup. Might anyone have just a couple of carrots we could throw in?" And a young family who lived just on the outskirts of town decided that they could spare a few carrots from their garden, and they brought a handful back with them. The old woman chopped them and put them in a pot. And then she said, "A little protein would fill our bellies. I wonder if anyone has some beans stored away in a cupboard." And there was an old couple who had been storing beans up for the winter, and they brought out the jar and they generously poured all of them in. And then, without even asking, the man from up the road decided he'd pull out a sack of last year's potatoes and he'd share as many as he could. They chopped them together and started throwing them in the pot, and it simmered and boiled, and the townspeople felt hungry because it started to smell good. The old wise woman said, "I wonder if anyone has a few bones to flavor this stock in our soup." And lo and behold, two families came forward with a few bones they had been saving in their freezers, and they threw them in the pot. And then it really started to smell tasty. And without asking, neighbors from all up and down the main street gathered some herbs from out in front of their houses, tied them in bundles, and threw those into the pot too to flavor the soup. And so after an hour or so, the town came together and realized they had made a whole soup out of just a handful of stones. And of course, everyone's generosity. And tonight they feasted together on the soup that they had made by sharing what they had. And they realized that what they had was enough. And that is the end of our story. And now it is time for us to share our joys and our sorrows with one another. We are a community that holds one another in all the deepest feelings of our hearts. Whatever it is that's on your heart this morning, I invite you to share it in our chat. And know that whatever you're holding, we are with you. Are there joys or sorrows to lift up this morning? There is so much on our hearts today. Joy at seeing our families at pie. Grateful anticipation about the progress of vaccines. Thanksgiving for help for people who needed it. Heartbreak over watching the numbers of folks who have contracted the virus dying. A canceled trip and differing Thanksgiving plans and all the mixed feelings that go with that. For Kevin's mom and his family having to be apart. For Scobie's friend Sarah. For a canceled trip and all the canceled trips. For staying safe and the pain that that might mean for us. These and all the feelings left in the silence of our hearts, we hold together and know that in all of these, we are with you. And now I'd like to invite you into the spiritual practice of generosity. As we begin our offering this morning, I want to give you a short update on our church finances. This has been a tough year for lots of us, for all of us. And our finances have taken a little hit. It's not anything to panic about, our diligent treasurer assures me. But if you find yourself in a somewhat unique position of having extra this year, and you might be able to increase your pledge, that would help keep the church budget in the black this year. If you find yourself in the position of having lost this year in ways you couldn't have expected, do not feel this call as an obligation to you. We don't want any of you under greater hardship than this year has already put us in. But if you do have extra and could be extra generous this year, the church could surely use it. I want to now invite you to give this morning to our morning's plate offering, and there are a couple of ways you could do that. I'm going to share in the chat a link where you might give to this morning's offering online. That's at canandaiguauu.org/connection. Or you could mail a check to the church at 3024 Cooley Road in Canandaigua. Or you could set up automatic plate gifts through your bank, if that's something that would help you remember to give each Sunday. And in any of those cases, I would encourage you to make a note that this gift is meant as part of this morning's offering, in which case we, like always, will share a quarter of it with our monthly community partner. And our service community partner this month is Ganondagan. We thank you for your generosity. Let's take a deep breath in together and get ready for a time of centering, followed by some shared silence. Get comfortable in your seat. Let your feet find the floor if you're able. Feel supported by the good earth beneath you. Let your shoulders relax and your breath become slow. Perhaps your eyes close. My most beloved person has an atypical brain, an attention disorder, we might call it. Many of my favorite people, actually, do attention differently. They're habitually late, never on a schedule or a timeline. They tell themselves they're undisciplined. Most of the rest of us agree. Where were you? We demand of them. What were you doing? And they can't really answer. That was then. This moment is a new moment. And then I need them. The doctor wants to discuss the test results in person. Or I'm regretting what I said in anger yesterday. Or Dad seems to be forgetting things. Do you have a minute? I ask. Of course. They always have a minute. They have minutes upon minutes for me, for others, for whomever or whatever is right in front of them, right now, right here. They are not somewhere else when they're with us. They're not making grocery lists, planning their afternoon, worried about deadlines or reliving an earlier conversation. They have a minute, this minute, and they give it, never afraid to use up their precious minutes on us. Their minutes overflow, a blessed stream of grace, the gift of attention borrowed from somewhere else, something less important, because it isn't right now, right here. May we all live like they do for today, I pray. No desire but for this one present moment. Do we have a minute? Just this one, right now, right here. When my grandparents were young parents, they went on a trip to Italy and they brought back a bottle of wine that they were given there as a gift. My grandfather, who grew up during the Great Depression, envying the orphans who lived in an orphanage across the street from him because they all had shoes, was, as you might imagine, a saver. So he set it on a shelf to save it. He remarked that maybe they would open it when their youngest child, then a toddler, got married. And there it sat. Well, he eventually gave up on waiting for the youngest to get married, and rightfully so, since she's coming up on 60 and still living that single life. So he brought it out at the wedding of his second youngest child, some 40 years later. It took some doing to get the cork out, and then it was ceremonially poured into tiny glasses for everyone. He toasted and we all took a sip, and then we all spat it out. Vinegar. It had spoiled sometime in those decades on the pantry shelf. And isn't that just the way of life sometimes? When we hoard joy, try to store it in a cupboard to be meted out at exactly the time of our choosing, it turns sour on us. This culture of scarcity wouldn't have us think so, but I believe joy is meant to be experienced as a rush. That's the beauty of it, the grace of it, that it floods in unexpected, overwhelming us with the abundance of this world, and then rushes right back out again. And in those waves lies all our opportunity for gratitude. When we try to own joy, to own grace, to stick it on a shelf and save it for later, we lose it and lose our chance for gratitude along the way. One of the little mantras I repeat softly to myself throughout my days is this: use it up. See, I am my grandparents' granddaughter, and I have a tendency toward hoarding. I'm a couple generations removed from the trauma of extreme poverty that they knew in the 30s. So it's not a pathology causing me to cover every surface I own with junk. It's just a slight grimace every time I scrape food off a plate and into the trash. It's a hesitation to light the fancy candles on the dining room table and let them burn down into nothing. Or an impulse to save that nice bottle of wine for the perfect special occasion, a perfection that somehow never arrives. Maybe you know the feeling. And more than that, some days I catch myself hoarding my time and my energy too, saying no where yes might feel more joyful, saving up time to do important things instead of playing on the floor with children whose youth I absolutely cannot store for another year, another day. Maybe you know this trap too. See, our culture would have us live in this spirit of scarcity all the time. Buy more because you might need it. Stow away what you have. Save and hoard, and don't think about savoring your abundance. Buy all the toilet paper. Don't think about pouring some abundance out for another. Because we don't deserve it, that's part of the message for sure. We don't deserve this world of grace because we could lose it all at any moment. And that we could somehow prepare for that future moment by refusing joy today. So I have to remind myself as a spiritual discipline to use it up. Maybe you do too. I have to set the intention to live in this moment and not some unreal future one. I think probably we all do sometimes. The greatest challenge of abundance is believing it is real. It's a struggle to have faith that this is a world of abundance and not of scarcity. But an attitude of scarcity doesn't just cause us to let good wine go bad, waiting for the right day to use it up. It causes us to be wary of the whole wide, beautiful world, and that's a painful way to live. It cuts us off from Thanksgiving. With a mindset of scarcity, we hoard our time, rationing our hours, unable to stop and take pleasure in them. With a mindset of scarcity, we hoard the resources we hold in common, fearful of some future need, and meanwhile, our neighbors are hungry today. With a mindset of scarcity, we hold fear close and let joy slip away. The culture of scarcity would tell us that the cup of life must be guarded, miserly, sipped from sparingly. But we know the old wisdom that tells us this cup overflows. This moment is all there is, and this moment is so full. If we try to put its fullness away for later, we will find nothing but sour wine when later comes. This week, we observed Transgender Day of Remembrance, and I spent some time recalling a gender diversity workshop I participated in a few years ago with C.B. Beale, one of our recent guest preachers. CB had us participants go around the room and answer the question, how do you take your coffee, black or with cream? And we all gave an answer of one or the other, save maybe one or two who said none thanks for me. Then CB asked us to take turns again, telling the group what we would order at a fancy neighborhood coffee shop with unlimited options and unlimited funds. Hardly any two people answered the same. We heard espressos and Americanos and pumpkin spice lattes and iced cold brew with caramel swirl. And we even had a lengthy side discussion about what the hell is oat milk. CB pointed out that when given a simple binary, most of us go along with one of the few choices available. But when we open our questions up, we find an abundance within us. When we're not bound by a scarcity of options, our creative grace is unleashed. I am so grateful to our trans and non-binary and genderqueer siblings for living out the truth that scarcity is a myth. Gender isn't scarce. Identity isn't scarce. Life isn't scarce. It is wildly abundant. We can be whomever we are, however the fullness of life's abundance expresses itself in us. And life's abundance is indeed in us, even if our gender is as simple as plain black coffee. This is why I tell myself, and make it a spiritual discipline to do so, to use it up. Because the spirit of life is abundant. This glorious world is not austere. It is not inadequate to our needs. And to live like it is goes against our very principles. To live in scarcity is to dishonor the gifts of life itself. Because when we live like there isn't enough, or like there probably won't be enough tomorrow, or like we are responsible for controlling what enough looks like, we miss the chance to partake in thanksgiving for life's gifts. Grace is only ours when we don't control it. Gratitude is only ours when we know we're not in charge. Grace is only ours when we know we don't control it. Gratitude is only ours when we know we're not in charge. I've told you this story before. I'll probably tell it again. But one of my earliest memories is a moment of Thanksgiving. I was watching my father walk through the family garden that was dug into the side of the hill where our house sat, overlooking the rolling hills and valleys of the Green Mountains. It was the end of a long summer day, and he was covered in grass from mowing hay all afternoon. I buried my feet in the hot black dirt of the garden and watched him bend down and pick up a tomato from the vine. He held it up and looked at it appraisingly, then bit into it like an apple. Gazing out at the sun setting on the hills, he grinned and said what he always said in moments of simple joy. I wonder what the poor people are doing. And I'll admit, I was a child, and it was years before I got his joke. I failed to realize in the moment that we were the poor people, working class, we might say, to dignify it a bit. To live in relationship to the earth like farmers must is to know the nearness of poverty, whether it's present or not. A few bad storms, one early frost, or a summer drought are enough to turn a lucky year unlucky. And yet at that moment, with the juice of tomato, sweet and tangy on his tongue, my dad was saying boldly that he couldn't imagine being richer. In the midst of actual hardship, he had the audacity to find delight, to laugh at what we think of as hardship. No hoard of wealth is sweeter than this very moment. His gratefulness for life's abundant grace, I think, was defiant and radical. When we are aware of our connection to the web of life, of the insecurity that comes with tying our lives to the wild earth, we know we live by grace alone. But we also know that grace is abundant in this world. And all we can hope to do with it is use it up. There is much to guard our hearts against this Thanksgiving, much to be anxious or stingy about. So much nudging us toward the mindset of scarcity. Tomorrow might look grim enough to rob today of its joy if we let it. But I urge you this year especially to lean into grace. Eat the ripe tomato because it is only ripe for this one moment. Drink the wine, burn the candles all the way down. Take such pleasure in your time and your love that they overflow for all those around you. May we be thoroughly present in this moment and not spread thinly over an imagined future. This one soul is all that we can hope to keep forever. This one moment is all that we have, and we should definitely use it up. May it be so. Amen.
Oh, my mama told me, 'cause she say she learned the hard way. Say she want to spare the children. She say don't give or sell your soul away, 'cause all that you have is your soul. Don't be tempted by the shiny apple. Don't you eat of a bitter fruit. Hunger only for a taste of justice. Hunger only for a world of truth. 'Cause all that you have is your soul. I was a pretty young girl once. I had dreams, I had high hopes. Married a man, he stole my heart away. Gave his love, but what a high price I paid. And all that you have is your soul. Don't be tempted by the shiny apple. Don't you eat of a bitter fruit. Hunger only for a taste of justice. Hunger only for a world of truth. 'Cause all that you have is your soul. Why was I such a young fool? Thought I'd make history, making babies was the best I could do. Thought I'd find something I could be mine forever. Found out the hard way you can't possess another. And all that you have is your soul. be tempted by the shiny apple. Don't you eat of a bitter fruit. Hunger only for a taste of justice. Hungering only for a world of truth. 'Cause all that you have is your soul. I thought that I could find a way to beat the system, make a deal and have no debts to pay. I'd take it all, I'd run away, me for myself, first class and first rate. But all that you have is your soul. Don't be tempted by the shiny apple. Don't you eat of a bitter fruit. Hunger only for a taste of justice. Hunger only for a world of truth. 'Cause all that you have is your soul. Here I am, waiting for a better day, a second chance, a little luck to come my way, a hope to dream, a hope that I can sleep again and wake in the world with a clear conscience and clean hands. 'Cause all that you have is your soul. Don't be tempted by the shiny apple. Don't you eat of a bitter fruit. Hunger only for a taste of justice. Hunger only for a world of truth. 'Cause all that you have is your soul. Oh, my mama told me, 'cause she say she learned the hard way. Say she want to spare the children. She say don't give or sell your soul away. 'Cause all that you have is your soul. All that you have, all that you have, all that you have is your soul.
I offer you as a benediction these words by Amy Schmidt. It's impossible to be lonely when you're zesting an orange. Scrape the soft rind once, and the whole room fills with fruit. Look around. You have more than enough. Always have. You just didn't notice until now. Let's sing our closing hymn together. We sing now together. Let's extinguish our chalices together as we recite our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you for being here this morning. It was good to be together.